Actually, I've been to Troy and Albany a ton over the years, but I don't recognize anybody. Have I seen any of you work before? You don't have. You were backstage, so no. Did I see you before? You get your hand up.
I saw it.
So, for me, first of all, this is the actual adjudication season ended last week, so this is the kickoff of a brand new cycle. So, what a nice little kickoff! I always appreciate coming to see something I've never seen before, and I have never seen Evil Dead the musical. I've heard lots about it. So this was a 307-mile drive, but it was well
Oh my
worth it.
God.
A couple things. I have to do my Tannis commercial, so let me do that quick and get it out of the way, and then we'll just talk about the show, which is what you guys are invested in. Tannis is a statewide organization. What we do is represent all non-professional theater, colleges, high schools, community theater across the state. My job is to stand before you and give you some reactions to the work on the stage tonight. But one of the things that I feel is most important is to kind of lay some groundwork as far as what the scope of the work is supposed to be. Adjudicators all have the same damn training, but we all come at it with our own little twist and perspective. For me, it's not about adjudicating, it's not about judging, but it's about laying some groundwork and perhaps giving you some tools the next time you work, whether it's as an actor, a designer, a director, a choreographer, scene designer, whatever the case might be. In fact, one of my jobs tonight is not, and I'll repeat that very clearly, is not to affect this production, which sounds kind of weird. It's like, what the hell are you standing in front of us talking for? But you guys are the experts. You guys are the ones that have worked on this for weeks, perhaps months, perhaps even longer. And so if anything changes in this production based on tonight's conversation, then I'll have done you guys a horrible disservice. This is about your future work as performers and directors and designers. With that said, hard to divorce yourself from the comments that I'll make tonight and then the work you're doing on the stage, but please, please do. First of all, when you have a chance to see something that you've never seen before, you dump all your baggage. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen Oklahoma. And, yeah, it's a delightful song. But the problem is, we've all seen Oklahoma so much, you come and sit in an audience and you have certain expectations. I didn't have any expectations tonight except I want a good show and I want to be entertained. So pretty much, and this is the kind of show where, and I'll say this kind of tongue-in-cheek, but I mean it, you can kind of get away with anything. I mean, really, unfortunately, it's true. There was a lot of shit up there tonight. To continue the vulgarity and crassness of the evening, really, the condom into the audience was, I think, one of the lowest moments in theater. But and therein lies the joy of the show. I mean, I've seen the term campy used quite a few times. It really is somewhere between this bad horror flick, Jason, Halloween, toss in some damn musical theater, and then let's make fun of the whole thing. And so the real danger in doing something like this is finding a way to make it a parody, to make fun of it, if you will, without making fun of it. Because if it becomes apparent to us that you're making fun of it, we're going to lose the humor. And I think it's one of the nice lines that this cast and company managed very well. We knew that, I'm trying to think what, real is not even a word I'm going to use this evening. We knew that what you were doing was indeed a parody, but you kind of gave yourself over to it fully. I very much appreciated your work tonight. You know, at first I thought, what the hell did they put that wig on her head for? Only to find the evolution as the evil. I believe I dated someone like you in college. And I've never been able to date again since then.
I'm so sorry that I gave everybody a bad name here.
You drove my manhood into another century. Some things to think about, and we'll talk about the show itself. And I'm going to mix some directing tech. You can't talk about the show and not talk about the technical elements. First act, 55 minutes. Second act, 37 minutes. Michael will know this is one of my pet peeves, so I apologize for bringing it up. Your intermission is 23 minutes long. That's way, way too long. Flash us at 9, have us back in our damn seats at 12 and get the show going. But if you think about it, a 23-minute intermission compared to a 37-minute second act, it's almost the same. You can't keep us away from the show that long without the cast having to work really hard to bring us back into the world. Not so hard to do with this show necessarily, but it's one of those things that kind of catches my attention. I think the challenge of doing this piece of theater in this particular space is huge, technically. I think this show throws a number of curveballs at you, and this space throws a few more on top of that. I had a very brief conversation with your sound guy. One of the things I appreciated technically about the work tonight was a lot of the sound element and the special effects and the noises and those things, which were 90% successful. Every once in a while there's a little blip in the road. But one of the problems we had in this cavernous space was the balance between the pit and the cast. And there were a couple of numbers where and it was more so group numbers, where there was a little bit of a struggle for what we could hear. But there were times where I think the pit is the news director here, Maria. I think there were times where you were conducting the pit. Yeah. There's times I think the pit could just be pulled back a hair.
Yeah, you can't actually pull back any farther.
That's unfortunate because we can't hear what they're singing.
Yeah, we already cut the drum set in half and
Really?
turned down as much as we could and still be heard. So
When we get into some of those group numbers, I think especially about the last one, we almost heard no lyric.
okay.
And so therein lies a dilemma. With a show that's not Oklahoma, which we can fill in the lyrics for, this show, unfortunately, we can't. Although some of the lyrics will ring through our heads repeatedly. It really was a vulgar show, and I like vulgarity for the record. This was a well-cast show. I don't know if you had all these folks come out and you had to beat the bushes. For me, casting, the decision about casting, when I look at what's up there, did people get put in the right spots? Hands down, absolutely yes. I think a mixed group of vocalists, some folks that are very well trained, some folks that have a solid skill set, but there's quite a range. And I think people, you were also vocal director, correct? I think there was a nice work with this group that didn't allow us to notice the difference between the skilled vocalists versus folks that are newer to that art. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's certainly a compliment. As tough as lighting was in this space, I think whoever did the lighting deserves kudos because there was a number of things that worked very well that supported the technical elements. Everything from that kind of pink hue as the zombies were sucked back out the door to some other very fine moments that I thought in a tough space gave a real nice punch to scenes and moments. I do have to wonder out loud about the pink blood, and I know blood is a delightful component of this show. I wondered if there was a chance to get it any more blood-like in color and what you guys experimented with.
That's partially based on inspiration of the source material, because in the Evil Dead movies, blood is never blood red.
Okay.
Blood is neon yellow, green,
Is it really?
blue.
And I will admit I've never seen any of the movies.
And we wanted to lean more towards blood-like, but also pay homage to that. So, and we also wanted to sort of dull down some of the gross out factor for people. And that combined with the formula we were using to make sure everything washed out. That's where it led.
The washout is huge. Now, I'm a little confused by the dull down, because you didn't dull down anything else in this production. So I'm joking, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we discovered that the one thing that bothered people, if people were bothered, was blood coming at them.
So let me ask you this, okay, and again, not having seen the movies, I'll take you at your word. Why then the pink that is sort of a resemblance to blood as opposed to going with some of the neon colors? Because you just went straight pink, didn't you?
It's pretty neon magenta pink.
It dries more of the white pink.
It shows up really well on clothing.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It really truly
It
does.
just dries up the
So it's just a wonderment I had. And I thought, okay, why did they land with this color? Was this the only thing you could do? And what did you experiment? So you were the emperor of the blood, is that what I'm hearing?
It was a group effort, but I kind of experimented with the blood.
You were also the moose.
Being the moose. That is my moose.
It's a very effective moose. Makeup. Who managed the makeup? Who oversaw it?
Behind you, hi.
Very nice work.
Thank you.
I thought some of the makeup there was just really quite strong and remarkable. And again, I hate to even think about using the word genuine or real or anything like that, but when you get to this kind of preacher, Halloweeny kind of crap, pardon my expression, you can really fall into the crap world, and you avoided that very nicely. The overall look of the show, I thought, was really quite strong when we thought about costume choices and the makeup and all those things that happened. My one wonderment when it came to costumes, and I'm not sure who, I'll crack your code for you when I say wonderment, that's criticism. My one wonderment about costuming was for the two leads. Where's your woman?
I'm here.
There she is. You guys were in the same color shirt. So we had Supergirl, we had their blues, and then we had the other two in the reddy pinks. So was that a purposeful choice?
It was.
Okay.
They're all college kids, but we were going with the assumption that Ash and Linda were coming right from work at S-Mart, so they both had their khakis and blue shirts.
Okay. All right, that makes sense to me. They didn't strike me as uniform shirts, but now that you say that, I can take that at least. That whole Superman outfit, you were just a little flight.
That was more of a nerdy choice.
Yeah, it really worked quite well.
Thank you.
A couple of things, I'm going to get into the meat of the show, and we'll still talk more about technical things throughout. I thought the opening could be just a little bit stronger sound-wise. I'm not sure who was managing the volume for the sound, but it was a little light and then kind of built into it. So if there's a way to come out of the gate a little stronger, that would be most appreciated. You guys set up from the very beginning kind of the style of the show, for lack of a better term. So all of a sudden they pop out in that awful car, which was really wonderfully awful. I'm not criticizing the car itself, but what really kind of capped it for me were the damn trees. And this sounds weird, but I really appreciated the trees throughout. Sometimes they were that deadpan, sometimes they actually had a bit of a character to them, but the choice of the trees along with the car, and I thought, okay, we're in for a hell of a ride this evening. And that's important for me in the very beginning because I need to know that I'm in the right hands so I can give myself over and relax. There's nothing worse for an audience, especially if we know you, that we're sitting out there and we're working for you and we're working with you and we want you to succeed, as opposed to an audience who just knows they're in good hands and settles down and says, okay, entertain and do for me, which is what you guys did for us tonight. The style of acting, and I started to allude to this when we were talking at the very beginning, I think is a very tough balance to find, but in general this cast did very well with that. The whole Cabin in the Woods number, that very first number, was just wonderful. Audience interaction. Tell me, cast and director, how you decided to play with us, where and how much you wanted to engage us or not. Anybody?
I mean, these people who are willingly coming to a show, where we warn them that they're going to get sprayed potentially, so I feel like just take that as far as push it before they discuss.
The poncho stuff is a la Blue Man Group. I mean, it's the only other poncho show I've ever been to in my life. I guess my wonderment, criticism, let me crack that code again for you, is this is a show I think that can be highly interactive. I mean, my God, we've got blood spewing on us, we've got condoms flying into us. There are times you certainly are doing direct address to us, if you will. I wondered why, though, and this is just my perspective, the audience, except for stuff that flew into us, the cast was here and we were here. And I wondered if there was ever an opportunity to mix those two worlds. Not that I need the cast running through the audience or doing those things. I'm not even sure what I'm advocating for, but I wondered more about melding the two. Director, your response or thoughts on that?
The only time I had them really even breaking the wall a little bit is on some of the key lines. There's a lot of lines in the show that are pulled right from the movies, so you assume that you have to go into it assuming each night that you'll have at least a few people in the audience that know the movies very well. So those were more the lines that I was okay, break the wall a little bit, look right at the audience. But then
No, I like the breaking the wall.
Yeah.
And of course, you cap it with eyebrow boy here.
So those are more the moments that I was going to take and run with them because the people that know the movies very well, they're going to pick up on that. They might even be back to it. I feel like it's a cult classic in the making, like Rocky Horror. It's not quite there yet, but I feel like this is the kind of show that's getting there with people that fans. And when you get the right fans here, they'll say the words back with you. On our opening night, they were saying many of the lines back with the cast.
I think there's a chance for your audience to be more interactive. But the trouble is, and you all know this, especially in the last 15, 20 years of theater, especially, audiences have become especially amazing. and we come to the theater and we sit back and we say, entertain, do for us. And theater really has got to be an interactive sport, if you will, between your audience and your cast. But we're just not used to it. So with a piece of theater like this, you almost have to give us permission to play, if you will. And sometimes I think you could have gotten even more of a response from your audience as far as some of that talk back and interaction, if in the beginning we understood that we were allowed to play a more active role. So those were the things that just spun around in my head. I would say, especially in the beginning, and I know I'm going to sound like an old man and I apologize for it, that, you know, you're talking about people who have accents. And when I'm talking to somebody who throws a Russian accent at me or whatever they do, I'll always say to them, you know what, you got to be a little bit careful in the, what?
Russian accent is a running joke.
Inside joke.
So I separated. So you got to be a little bit careful. You got to allow us to adjust to. And you guys announced, director, in your speech, if you don't like sex, violence, and rock and roll, then get on out kind of thing. So we knew that we were going to be exposed to stuff, if you will. Where's Miss Dress Girl? Good Lord. Sleeves all the way down. But I still think when it comes to some of, especially the sexuality and the vulgarity a little bit, you don't have to push it quite as hard at us in the very beginning. Just let it flow like everything else flows. Although I certainly was never offended by any of it. I would say cast, there's a little bit of work to do with your director and with your music director and you in what I'll refer to as some of the transitions from dialogue to music. I think there were times it flowed beautifully and was seamless, and there were other times it was just a slight bump in the road where a line was delivered and we waited a beat or two to step into the song. And for me, that was just a momentary stop in the production that you guys, I know, with this skill set can clean up beautifully. It's one of those pet peeves I have, like long intermission, so I apologize. And I made this note throughout, a number of really fine soloists and solo moments. The other thing that I appreciate is that people were able to do what they were doing vocally while maintaining the characterization. Because I think there's a number of times people will forego the characterization to make sure that they can sing the song appropriately, if you will, or vocalize appropriately and forget all the good work that they've done. I didn't see this cast sacrifice that. They moved right forward with it. Oh, look who's evil now. It's really quite a remarkable number. And it happens a couple of times to a couple different folks. Those were examples of what I thought were very fine transitions from dialogue to music. I want to compliment the Moose work. Seriously, first of all, as actors, we all know that it's essential that you help us understand and know your characters right out of the gate. You guys have an extra burden because of the broadness of these people. And in some ways, almost a stereotypical presentation. Although I think the nice thing that happened, and I'll compliment you, is you obviously were playing the stereotype, but you didn't fall on the stereotype. You just kind of played with it and let us play with it, and it worked beautifully. You are not as pretty dead as you are alive, but that's okay. I don't think any of the cast actually improved. But nice management of playing that kind of broad characterization, but not going too far. And again, I'm beating that point to death, but this is a show where you can go a hair too far and lose us because we're losing comedy. I would love to watch over and over and over again what I refer to as Ash in the Hand fight. It was just so well. Yeah. So you choreographed it?
Yeah, I did a lot of the stuff.
That was wonderful. It really was wonderful. It was just a joy to watch. We talked about the pink blood. It was interesting to watch the audience because once they knew, including myself, when that damn chainsaw came out, we were about to, you'd watch them all, cover up and hunker down. And there was one time where we all thought it was coming, and you kind of throw us a fake, and it's like, shit. Pardon my language. Actually, what am I apologizing for?
Don't worry.
So I don't know that the fake was intentional or not, but it was kind of wonderful. Kind of threw us off.
Every night.
Yeah, we were just ready to get sprayed. It's like, nothing happened. There's a line later in the show that talks about why didn't you kill the one who gives all the puns? And the irony is, again, I've never seen the show, but I was thinking, oh, kill her. I can't listen to one of those. But it worked well. It was like a bad puppet show. Not bad. So, tell me about, first of all, let me compliment what I'll call a movement choreography as folks zombie up, if you will, if you became the dead, and some of that really rigid, stiff, mechanical kind of movement I thought worked very, very well. So congratulations to whoever managed that. Choreographer or not?
Director, choreographer, costumer.
Okay, so a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
But the choreography in general was very successful, especially the necro number, if you will. It's like a mix between Thriller, Michael Jackson, and a bad rodeo, for lack of Talk to me about the very end of Act 1 and how it landed as far as you're concerned with the audience. So we've got the die, kill, whatever is it number, which we reopen it to.
Yes. Sorry, what are you asking?
Staging wise, impact wise, what were you shooting for? What did you want us to walk away with as we went into that act?
As you went into it, or as you left Act 1?
As we left it.
As you left Act 1, I think the overall feeling is supposed to be, well, he's been caught, now what happens, which makes it even funnier when they come back in the beginning of Act 2 and the bodies are all gone. Which is great because they actually have the line in it, now there aren't a pile of dead bodies, which is another way to play up the camp.
In a show where I thought there were some beautiful moments, well-executed moments, nice caps. I wasn't sure about the cap in the back wall. Something that really kind of dropped it and brought it close to it. Now, part of what was working against you was lighting in a space like this. You just couldn't. But part of it, I think, and because you didn't have the lighting to do it, I think you might need to look a little bit more for the moment in the staging to kind of close it for us. Because your audience sat there for a beat or two and said, is it over? And we were kind of waiting for somebody else to pop through the door again. And I knew that it was the end of the act, but we just needed a little bit tighter closure to take us out of that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Lighting was definitely a challenge, yes. In the space.
I was here for the, I can't think of, confetti stage, and they had tried a new space over really kind of an impoverished part of town. But they had awful lighting,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, there was essentially no light at all. So
Probably the barn, I'm assuming.
I don't remember.
But,
Lofts in the stage.
Yep.
I remember
Yeah,
that,
so the barn, yeah.
So sometimes tech is just not your friend based on the space. And when you know that, then you figure, okay, what am I going to do with this picture that's going to not rely on the lighting to do that? This cast, I thought, and this is a compliment, I wrote it in Act 2, but it's an appropriate note throughout. For me, and you guys all know this, the nonverbal work is sometimes more important than what's coming out of your mouth. And for me, this was a cast that was really strong non-verbally, especially when you got glued up and made up, if you will, because I think the makeup, while it enhanced the overall look, in some ways fights the overall appearance. So you guys, I thought, overcame that very, very well. Jake, delightful performance, really a wonderful. There's just something about your style that's kind of, in this show, and please take this as a compliment, there was a subtle broadness to what you did. You were much more scaled back than most of the world around you. I mean, it grew as the show progressed, but it worked. It worked beautifully. It really did. Now, the doo-wop number, I'm not sure what else to call it, that was really quite remarkable with the two of you. It's like, I don't ever need to see that again. Well executed for what it was, but that was the one dilemma in this space too, by the way, and it was true of that moment, but as some others. When we had floor work, most of us lost the floor work except for those first couple of rows. So there's no way to overcome it. Probably what was going on was worth doing and seeing, but knowing that probably 2/3 of your audience missed some of that is just an FYI. do you say the demons can?
Kandarian.
I'm looking at my horrible handwriting. The Kandarian Demon song I just thought was so well done, vocally, staging-wise, it worked very well. Another compliment to Jake that I put here, and then the Necro number, just well executed. It's what this show needed. It's like, where's our damn production number? You know, and of course the people who are writing this are feeding us bits and pieces throughout the show. A couple of things, thinking about folks who had to do multiple roles. So I'm thinking about our tree folks. I'm thinking, I believe you're the gentleman who was dad and came through with the special effect. That was kind of gruesome what it did to his face. What was that?
Just a piece of
A
cardboard.
magnifying.
All the
And a flashlight underneath.
Yeah, magnifying sheet.
Yeah, depending on which way you turned it, it distorted at different times. I'm like, oh damn, that's good. Another nice transition was for you, because just when we think this guy is going to give a bit of a backbone now that he's the undead or whatever you want to call him, of course when we find out you're just nothing but the big guy who died. So shit. A couple of things just to think about in the end. This show, I think, has its own rhythm. All shows do, if you will. And this one kind of pushes us right along. And not to say that the casting director would have to work to keep building things, but I would be just a little bit more mindful of how the rhythm and the pacing flows toward the very end. I think there's a chance to continue to build that even more, especially post-Necro. So maybe for me, there might have been just, and it certainly was never a drop in energy, but it was just a little bit of a drop in the pacing before it took off. Something that if you can, I know you can, you want to avoid. Talked a little bit about the last song lyrics, and for me that was a tough moment. But visually what was happening on the stage worked very well. I need to speak certainly about your work. I mean, you're the hero with a very large ego. But it's interesting in a show where everybody kind of has their moment where people pop and they have their scene, if you will. You're the through line throughout. And in a piece of theater like this, I think we can get what you do can become quite stale because you have to play in some way some of the same stuff throughout. And boy, did you dodge that bullet. Really engaging, wonderful facial work, beautiful vocals, and I don't mean beautiful in a pleasing to listen to way. And as much as you were arrogant and I wanted you to die, you made us, we knew that you were going to get through to the morning, we wanted to root for you, those sorts of things. So really, for me, in a piece, and we overuse the word ensemble, and this really is an ensemble piece, a lot of it's on your back. And I think you did a really strong job and carried this cast, which didn't need carrying per se, but brought this cast forward, and you did a beautiful job.
Someone in a horror movie, like, because everyone in a horror movie is an asshole, and you almost always want everyone to die. For me, justifying myself, why the hell should Ash live?
Well, and that's the point. And really, there's nothing all that redeeming about him. I mean, there really isn't. And we all know that if you have intercourse in a horror movie, you die. It's true. I mean, if you watch any of the Jason movies, sometimes the knife comes up during the bed, sometimes you get So what the hell were you thinking? We knew you were...
He's a horny bastard. Can't help himself.
We're not going there. And then, of course, capped by the change in sexual orientation at the end of the delightful pink outfit. Drove gay rights back by about 20 years. The right to marriage died in Troy, New York. with all of that said. This was my dress friend, and I busted on you a little bit because of your costume choice.
It was an interesting part of that.
It worked. One of the things that bummed me out, because I love the way you rip off, I didn't get to see the skirt removal because I was blocked by people. So I didn't know, did that work tonight the way you guys intended it? Okay. So it just kind of
It
peels.
rolls off. I do a spin and it kind of just spins off.
Yeah, I missed all of that, unfortunately. What I didn't miss, which I enjoyed, was that strong vocal moment you have when you got that featured number. Very, very nice work. Of course, you got your backup boys,
My
if
boys.
if you will. Your frightening boys. So, I've been talking for a little bit. Let me kind of try and bring some closure to this and then take questions from you guys. This is not a complex piece of theater on the surface, but as far as the technical execution, it's actually terribly complex. And I'm not talking about tech is complex, but as far as the style and what you bring to the stage to make it, I can't believe it was not a word I want to use, but to make it acceptable, to make us actually enjoy and appreciate the work. I think it really takes a very specific and kind of advanced skill set. And I think this is the kind of show when you see a strong production, you think, oh my God, I can do that. That would be great to do in our theater. It's kind of like God of Carnage. Anyone ever seen God of Carnage?
Yeah.
At its best, it is wonderfully cutting and funny. In the wrong hands, it is a dirge to sit through. And I think the same could be true of a piece of theater like this. In the wrong hands, you could be sitting here thinking, what the hell am I watching? And certainly, we had those moments tonight where it's like, what the hell am I watching? But give me more kind of thing. And again, that speaks to skill set. Was it a flawless production? Absolutely not. I have never been part of a flawless production. I don't know about you. And some of the bumps in the road tonight will be cleaned tomorrow, and there'll be different bumps, if you will. But that's the joy of doing live theater. My compliment to you is that you took what seems to be a relatively easy piece of theater, is not, and brought it to us with a great deal of style and ease that I think was really quite successful. With that said, I'm never able to talk about everything people want me to talk about. Some of the stuff I talk about, you think, what the hell is he talking about? Questions, thoughts. I don't want your toes to swell. I said that, so seriously, things you wished I had talked about that I didn't, things that I talked about that make no sense, questions on that.
No, your feedback has been very nice.
That's what I'm talking about.
So
Yeah.
I'll end by saying two things. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I always consider it a privilege to adjudicate. I don't mean that tongue in cheek. Many times I learn more from the companies I watch than I'm able to leave them. This is my third or fourth trip back to Troy Civic. I'm not really sure. I have never once been disappointed. It's been everything from Seussical to Cancer Wit to Evil Dead the Musical. So you guys certainly mix it up. One of the favors I would ask of you is, this is kind of I work in a vacuum, for lack of a better term, and so I'm never really sure if what I do is effective, if it's of use to the company. We used to hand out paper evaluations. Tanis is finally kind of caught up to the electronic age, and so I would encourage you all, and I know y'all won't, listen to me, I know you won't all have a chance, but if you go to the website, I think he's had relief.
We blew that toilet away.
That toilet. www.tanis.org.
Sadly, he is.
Hit adjudicator evaluation, and I would ask for you guys to do for me what I did for you for the last 45 minutes. I'd love to hear about the stuff you like, but more importantly, I'd like to hear what would have made it a more educational and useful experience. I'll end by what I started with. Don't change a thing. You guys are the experts. She's the queen and the boss. This is stuff about the future. Have a wonderful rest of your run, and thank you. That was frightening. That was the most frightening thing I've seen tonight. the toilet sequence, yeah.
Everyone, remember to send your